but important goal. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Honorable Eric Shinseki.
Good afternoon, Legionnaires. I'm honored to be here. It's great to be here with you in Indianapolis. Commander Wong, I'm appreciative of that very generous introduction. And let me quickly add that all of us owe the American Legion our gratitude for its unwavering devotion to veterans, all veterans, not just its members, through your many civic initiatives and community projects that make things better for veterans, make things better for veterans' families, and make things better for our communities as well. Let me just further acknowledge General Kelly and General Kicklighter, who I believe are here. Good to see both of you again. Your National Adjutant, Dan Wheeler, Peter Gaetan, your Executive Director, Chris Nelson, your Auxiliary President, Jim Roberts, Commander, Sons of the American Legion, other members of the Legion leadership, your families, other distinguished guests, especially Neil McKinnon and Gordon Moore from Canada, and General Chin from the Republic of China, fellow veterans, VA colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. For 93 years now, the American Legion has been the strong and consistent voice advocating for veterans' health and benefits, especially for veterans' education, which is your legacy to millions of veteran students as a result of the original GI Bill for Rights. You've been the voice for generations of Americans who have come home from war. Nothing speaks as eloquently as of your commitment to them, all veterans, as your Heroes to Hometown initiative, supporting the most severely wounded soldiers and helping them and their families in the aftermath of battle. From Boys State to Boys Nation, American Legion Ball, which I remember well, to scouting and volunteer projects, all of your community support initiatives have nurtured our best hopes and ideals as a nation. That nation has been at war for much of the last decade, and the repeated deployments of the men and women in our formations have created issues that don't show up right away. More are surviving catastrophic injuries. But higher survival rates also mean complex casualties. The compounding effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, multiple amputations, 5 quadruple amputees at this point, with the added complications of blindness, deafness, and genitourinary injuries. You know, bottom line, it takes a superb, disciplined fighting force to handle this kind of strain for this long. The men and women who wear our nation's uniforms today are simply magnificent, and the Legion's support of them has been equally magnificent. The President is unable to be here today, but has asked me to report to you on the state of your VA. I know he spoke to you earlier today. But I've been asked to bring you up to date on the state of the VA. How things looked 3.5 years ago, what changes we have made to take care of this current generation of veterans and every generation that preceded it, and where VA is headed in the future. In 2009, of the over 23 million living veterans in this country, only 7.4 million of them were enrolled in VA health care, and only 3 million were receiving compensation and pension benefits. We had an outreach problem. Many didn't know about the VA and its programs. We had an access problem. Even amongst those who knew, some had difficulty getting in. And even then, we had been carrying a backlog and compensation claims for decades. Over the past 3.5 years, VA has decided 2.9 million veterans' claims over that 3.5-year period. 900,000 in 09, 1 million claims going out the door in 10, 1 million claims going out the door in 11, 1 million claims decisions likely again this year, third year in a row. What that'll mean is that we will have processed nearly 4 million claims by the end of this year. So when people talk about the 580,000 compensation claims which are backlogged today, they're not talking about claims that were here 3.5 years ago. Probably not 2 years ago, and for the most part, not even a year ago. The backlog is real, but no one is standing at parade rest. This is a dynamic process. When you push 2.9 million claims out the door and 3.5 million come in, this is a big numbers operation. And we have to find ways to dominate those numbers. 3.5 years ago, we were also still grappling with some unresolved issues from past wars. The Gulf War over 20 years ago, the Vietnam War nearly 50 years ago now. I think in both cases, we didn't take care of business when we should have decades ago, and some veterans were dying without benefits. 3.5 years ago, an estimated 107,000 veterans were homeless in this rich and powerful country. The President has said, we won't be satisfied until every veteran who has fought for America has a home in America. Homelessness has been a veterans issue for decades. The economic downturn of 2008 threatened to send it spiraling out of control. And in spite of all of this, the President was clear, resolute, unwavering. It is immoral for anyone who has defended this country to be homeless in America, and we're going to fix that. So what I've just described for you is that landscape in 2009, which we have gone to work on to try to change. After consulting key stakeholders, including the American Legion, we settled on 3 key priorities back then in 2009, which remain unchanged today. First, a commitment to increase veterans' access to VA and benefits, whatever that takes. It's outreach, it's improving access, and when they're in, it's how do we get more people the care they need so they don't have to drive long distances to get it, and how do we make sure their programs that we have meet the requirements of all of our veterans, to include our women veterans, whose numbers are growing. The second commitment was to eliminate this thing. The second commitment was to eliminate this thing called the backlog. For many years, we talked about reducing the backlog. We said we're going to eliminate it. That's the only way to get control here. And we would do it in 2015, and that's the mark we put on the wall. The third commitment was to end veterans' homelessness. Again, not manage it, not reduce it, but end veterans' homelessness in 2015. Now, delivering on these priorities required a closer, more collaborative working relationship with the Department of Defense, DoD. As I've said on a number of occasions, very little of what we do in VA originates in VA. Much of what we work on in VA begins in DoD, and therefore this collaborative working relationship with DA is a top priority. The seamless transition of service members departing the military and joining VA is crucial. If we do that right, it's crucial to increasing access, eliminating the backlog, and ending this thing called the shame of veterans' homelessness. We need warm handoffs between our departments. That's what will help reduce those priorities or achieve those priorities. But warm handoffs of transitioning service members require the synergy of both departments. So Secretaries of Defense Bob Gates and Leon Panetta and I have personally met 9 times in the last 18 months. Both Secretary Gates and Secretary Panetta dedicated public servants. They're good friends of mine, and they're good friends to veterans. Secretary Panetta and I will meet a 10th time in mid-September, which is unheralded between cabinet leadership. A month ago, he and I testified for the first time together before a joint hearing of the House Armed Services Committee and the House Veterans Affairs Committee. Among our accomplishments, we have committed both of our departments to a single, common, joint, integrated electronic health record. Now, in fact, we put all those words in there. It's code. Each of those words means something. Single, joint, common, integrated. This electronic health record is designed to be open in architecture and non-proprietary in design. We expect initial operating capability in 2014 and full operating capability in 2017. You can't have seamless transition where service members come to VA and all of their records are intact unless you have this electronic health record that we share in common. So that's a big step. We intend the transition from DoD to VA to be seamless and productive, helpful to all veterans. So DoD-VA collaboration was priority one. Priority two was fixing VA's budget process. Creating change requires stable, predictable budgets. The fact that we have an advanced appropriation, thanks to the American Legion and other VSOs, is a huge step in creating stable and predictable budgets. If we want to go faster, budgets have to be robust. In 2009, the VA budget totaled $99.8 billion. Congressionally enhanced, it was a good budget. In 2010, the President increased that budget from $99.8 billion to $127.2 billion, a near 30% increase in a single year. Importantly, the President's 2013 budget request, which is currently before the Congress, and one that I've testified to, is for $140.3 billion, a 40% increase since 2009. I was once asked, Mr. Secretary, what do you value? It was one of those shoot-from-the-hip impromptu questions that I was asked as I stood up after a long briefing. And before I could respond, the questioner said to me, don't answer that question. Show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. By that standard, this 40% increase in VA's budget tells you what the President values. He understands our obligation to veterans, and he has provided the robust funding needed to better care for them today and simultaneously to transform this department for its 21st century responsibilities. Have to do both at the same time. Fix the issues today and build a stronger and more responsive organization for the long term. So what have we put into motion in VA in the past 3.5 years? Well, let me just tick off some things that are easy to track. First, to increase access, we've added 57 new community-based outpatient clinics, and that will continue. 20 more mobile health clinics on wheels to get to the most rural, most remote areas in this country. A 5th polytrauma center in San Antonio, Texas. We have 3 new hospitals under construction, Denver, Orlando, and New Orleans. We just opened a spectacular state-of-the-art VA medical center in Las Vegas just 3 weeks ago, the first new VA hospital in 17 years. This is about promise-making and promise-keeping. And as the President remarked recently, we keep our promises. We've also invested heavily in new telehealth, telemedicine initiatives to overcome the tyranny of distance. Enhanced IT technologies also make it easier for veterans to make appointments, to access medical specialists that aren't available to them locally, retrieve their medical records, and find out about available benefits and services, all without having to drive long distances. Again, battling with the tyranny of distance. Now, beside besides these initiatives, we've also made some key decisions to take care of some long-standing issues and literally to clean up the battlefield. For Vietnam veterans, we granted presumption of service connection for 3 new Agent Orange-related conditions. You've heard about them: Parkinson's, hairy cell and other chronic B-cell leukemias, and ischemic heart disease. It had been 45 years. It was time. For Gulf War veterans, we granted presumption of service connection for 9 diseases associated with Gulf War illness. For them, it had been over 20 years. It was time. And finally, PTSD for all combat veterans with verifiable PTSD. World War II, Korea, Dominican Republic, Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, Somalia, Operation Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, among others. We granted the presumption of service connection. PTSD is as old as warfare itself. And here again, it was time. Now, these 3 decisions alone have dramatically expanded access to VA for nearly 1 million veterans. Making these decisions is step 1. Step 2 is dealing with the increase in compensation claims that are sure to result. Growth in the number of claims in the backlog was predictable, and we indicated when we made these decisions that we were going to take them on. It was the right thing to do for Vietnam veterans, for Gulf War veterans, and for combat veterans of all wars. And we will do it again whenever the opportunity to better serve veterans presents itself. Let's not back away from such decisions because we're either afraid of or don't want the backlog to grow. Let it grow. We'll work on it. We'll get it down. But let's keep our priorities straight here. It is about taking care of veterans. VA has spent the past 2 years developing a new automation tool called VBMS, Veterans Benefits Management System. It's being piloted at 2 regional offices for over a year now. We'll have VBMS up and running at 16 regional offices by the end of this year, and at all 56 regional offices by the end of 2013. VBMS is key to automating this massive numbers claims process I described to you that saw us put 2.9 million claims decisions out the door and received 3.5 million claims to go to work on. We're still receiving paper from DOD, and this will begin to change. VBMS is here. It's about to be fielded. In 2014, we will work with DOD to ensure that all transition documentation comes in electrons. And that's how you dominate this large numbers of claims. The President's budget's provided us the resources we need to end the backlog in 2015. That is our target, and we're on track. In 2009, I observed that veterans lead the nation in homelessness, depression, substance abuse, suicides, and they rank up there in joblessness as well. So we've had a full court press on to rescue veterans from the streets. As I indicated earlier, the estimated number of homeless veterans in this country in 2009 was 107,000. By 2011, in spite of the extended economic downturn, that estimate had dropped to 67,500. When HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, announces its 2012 estimate sometime shortly here, we expect that number will be below 60,000, keeping us on track to break 35,000 in 2013 and ending the rescue phase of veterans' homelessness in 2015. We always talk about this war on homelessness in 2 phases. One is rescue, getting the folks who are on the streets today off the streets into safe housing, and then go to work with them on their issues. Second phase is prevention. You're not going to end homelessness unless you're doing both, rescue and prevention. The prevention phase of veterans' homelessness will be ongoing, and it's probably going to continue indefinitely. will require VA to focus its significant capabilities on keeping at-risk veterans, veterans who are one paycheck away, one more missed utility payment away, one mortgage payment away from being foreclosed. Those are the folks we want to keep from slipping into this downward spiral that ends in homelessness. For example, we have roughly 800,000 veterans and eligible family members today in training and education, university, college, community college, tech schools, in the trades. They must graduate. Anyone who flunks out in this economy is at high risk of homelessness. Prevention. Keep them in school. Help them complete their studies. And my thanks to the American Legion for taking up the standard on this and helping us this past year. So my one-word speech to student veterans whenever I have a chance to gather with them, as I did last month in Boise State: graduate. One word, graduate. If I sound like your dad, I am. I'm paying most of your bills. Work this right, you might get a new car on graduation day. Bottom line, graduate. Another example of prevention: last year, roughly 86,000 of our 1.3 million veteran mortgage holders, 86,000 of 1.3 million, defaulted on their home loans. They were on their way to foreclosure. VA intervened, working with financial institutions, working with those veterans, lowering payments, extending payment periods. We were able to keep 73,000 of those veterans and their families in their homes. Prevention. We could say the same thing about what we must do in dealing with depression, substance abuse, suicide ideation. In VA's large healthcare system, we deal with all those issues. We do well. You can't roll your sleeves up and wring your hands at the same time, I'm told, in Central Texas. You have to do one or the other. You can't wring your hands and roll your sleeves up at the same time. We've rolled our sleeves up. We've gone to work on homelessness, and we expect to have this rescue phase of this ended in 2015. Mental health. In 2005, at the height of operations in Iraq, we had 13,000 mental health professionals handling the healthcare needs of our veterans. Today, that number is over 20,000, and we've just recently decided to hire another 1,600 clinical staff to address the growth in mental health requirements, spawned by a decade of tough, high-risk, high-stress, repetitive combat deployments. We know that when we diagnose and treat, people get better. Among the 8.6 million veterans enrolled in VA healthcare, mental health treatment is up, which is a good sign. It means that we're dealing with the stigma issues. At the same time, for veterans receiving VA mental health treatment, our suicide rates are trending down. Again, another good sign indicating that treatment works. However, too many veterans still leave the military with mental health issues we never find out about. Most veterans who commit suicide, perhaps as many as 2 out of 3, were never enrolled in VA. So as good as we might think we are, we can't help those we don't treat, which is another reason for increasing access to get more folks in the door and developing with DoD this seamless transition between the two departments, DoD and VA. Warm handoffs work. These are magnificent young people. We're not going to let them down. One of our most successful outreach efforts is our Veterans Crisis Line. DoD knows it as the Military Crisis Line. Same number, same trained VA mental health professionals answering the phone, not 911 operatives, mental health professionals online. No cost to DoD. I don't know how you put a price tag on helping people in crisis. Since 2007, over 640,000 people have called in, including over 8,000 active duty service members. We've made over 99,000 referrals for care and rescued over 23,000 from potential suicides in progress, in which we intervened. Younger veterans are more comfortable with chatting and texting, so in 2009 we added online chat, and in 2011 a texting service. We will always find ways to outreach to our veterans in need of help. Good jobs are essential for veterans, and my congratulations to the American Legion for your hiring effort that you conducted here as part of this convention. We're proud to have partnered with the First Lady's Joining Forces Initiative and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Hiring Our Heroes campaign. The President challenged private companies to hire or train 100,000 veterans or active duty spouses by the end of 2013. 2,100 companies responded. They've committed to over 175,000 jobs, and frankly, here recently, they achieved 125,000 veterans and spouses already being hired. VA has held its own hiring fairs in Washington, D.C. and Detroit in the first 6 months of this year. Over 12,000 veterans showed up and over 8,000 interviews conducted. 1,700 job offers were made on the spot, and the job offers continue to flow. We've also conducted 2 veteran-owned small business training expositions within the last 12 months. Our opportunity to educate veteran small business owners on our procurement requirements so they understand what it is we're looking for in their proposals, and then allow the 3,500 small business folks who showed up to demonstrate their capabilities and improve their preparation of competitive proposals for government contracts, which is what they need. Bottom line, veterans hire veterans. Veterans hire veterans because they're comfortable with them, they know each other. The more successful veteran entrepreneurs we cultivate, the better the opportunities for veterans employment. And that's why we put that initiative where it is. So where are we headed? Next summer, here's what VA will report to this convention. It'll report that between 2009 and 2013, we will have increased spinal cord injury funding by 28%. And by the following year, 2014, that increase will likely be 36%. Between 2009 and 13, we will have increased TBI funding, traumatic brain injury funding, by 38%. By 2014, that increase will likely be 51%. We will have increased mental health funding by 39%. By 2014, that increase will likely be 45%. We will have increased long-term care funding by 39%. By 2014, that increase will likely be 50%. We will have increased prosthetics funding by 58%, and by 2014, that increase will likely be 75%. Will likely be means it'll be in our budget, subject to approval by the Congress. We will have increased women's veterans funding by 123%, and by 2014, that increase will likely be 158%. We will have increased OEF, OIF, OND funding by 124%, and by 2014, that increase will likely be 161%. Our Veterans Benefit Management System will be fully operational at most regional offices, and just 40% of claims will be older than 125 days and will be after ending the backlog. Again, I go back to the tagline I used earlier, show me your budget. I was told, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value. You don't have to tell me what you value. Your budget will speak for you. And so the reason I share this detail with you, so you have a sense of where we're headed, and the fact that the President's budgets value veterans, their families, and our survivors, and what they've meant to this country. Now, in closing, a little bit of personal history. As a young battalion commander serving in Cold War Germany, I heard one of our senior generals in a Memorial Day speech make a statement, and it's one that stuck with me all these years. And what he said was, I know that when I die, I'll die a free man, on my feet, not on my knees, with my head up, not bowed. A simple statement. I know that when I die, I'll die a free man. And then he pointed east. It was still the Cold War. He pointed east and said, not far from here, there are people, in fact, an entire nation, who cannot say that and probably wouldn't understand the fundamental importance of those words. As I say, those words have stuck with me, and I've used it on occasion publicly. You see, because I realized as I listened to him that I'm a career military officer. I had been taking the privilege of my American citizenship a bit for granted. You see, those words are my legacy as well. I can utter the very same words. I know that when I die, I'll die a free man, on my feet, not on my knees, with my head up, not bowed to anyone. And those words are your legacy also. And because we share that legacy, our children and grandchildren will inherit it from us. They are able to make the same unequivocal statement. You see, only the free who cherish freedom and love liberty enough to fight for it can bequeath such a legacy to anyone else. The oppressed cannot. And the free who are not willing to fight for it, fight and die for it, cannot. Only the free who cherish freedom and love liberty enough to fight for it can bequeath the gift of freedom to others, as our young men and women are doing today, as our ancestors did for us, and as members of the Legion have for 93 years. So my thanks to all of you who have served, for your service, preserving that legacy for me and for all Americans. God bless those who serve and have served our nation in uniform. God bless our president. May God continue to bless this wonderful country of ours. Thank you all very much. Good luck on your convention.